Hi folks, the Filipino P here with the news. There's a lot happening in this part of the world with earthquakes, trade wars, and political unrest. But there's a million other channels talking about that stuff, so as always, I'm gonna cover the stories you will not hear anywhere else. Did you know that the jeepney's on its way out? That you can hire a company to make you completely disappear? And that Filipinas are more likely to be intimate with you on a certain day each month? So our first story is more of a cautionary tale about what happens when feminism goes too far. You Western guys are dealing with the same kind of thing, but just wait till you hear how bad it's gotten in Japan. The media often bashes Japanese men, suggesting they're all predators just waiting to strike. And anytime a woman claims harassment for even the simplest thing, like starting an unwanted conversation, the man can face jail time and loss of his job and reputation. And the most shocking thing, no proof is even required, just the woman's word. What could go wrong? As a result, the men have begun avoiding women altogether. But there's one place in particular where that's hard to do, on the subway. Now, it's true that Japan has had a big problem with chikan, or groping, where men press up against the female passengers. But now it seems that some of the women are taking things too far and abusing their power by accusing innocent men in an attempt to extort money and ruin careers. There are even teams of extortionists who claim to have witnessed chikan and threaten to report the man unless he pays up. It's becoming such a problem that Japanese men now have to resort to some pretty ridiculous countermeasures to avoid the accusations. Check this out. There's a company that actually offers groping insurance, and many men now had to hold their hands in the air when they get on the subway to prove they're not pinching some woman's butt. Other men only ride the subway in pairs and film each other for the duration of the trip. And for men that don't have backup, the purchase of a body cam has become almost mandatory. What a mess, right? As a result of all this nastiness between the sexes, a third of Japanese men between 20 and 35 years old have never even been on a date or had a girlfriend. And the falling birth rate is an unsustainable disaster. Now, thank goodness it's not nearly as bad in the Philippines, where there's an unspoken truce between men and women, at least for right now. So let this be a warning to my fellow countrymen. Do not give either sex unlimited power. It won't end well. And here's another story from our neighbors to the north. A story about people who vanish into thin air. It's called Johatsu, where people voluntarily disappear without warning, leaving friends and family without so much as a goodbye. Over 80,000 Japanese go missing each year, and a large portion of those disappearances are intentional. But why? And how do they do it? Well, as strange as this may sound, if you want to erase yourself, you call the night movers. They're actually companies that come in the middle of the night to quietly pack up all your belongings and transport you to a safe house in another city. They delete all your social media, cancel your credit cards, close your bank accounts, and even provide you with a new identity to start a whole new life. All for around $9,000. But who would want to do that? Especially if they have a wife and kids, or lifelong friends, or a good career. It sounds like a coward's way out. Well, in Japan, just like in the Philippines, your public image is everything. And something like losing your job or facing bankruptcy can create such pressure that you either have to enter the Squid Games to redeem yourself or call the night movers to help you start over. At least we don't have to worry about people going Johatsu in the Philippines because we could never afford the 9,000 bucks. But how do we Filipinos handle problems with our jobs or trouble in our relationships? Well, we drink. A lot. And that brings us to our next story. According to the Daily Tribune, 1 out of 4 Filipinas reported being the victim of a domestic altercation, and 55% of those involved alcohol. No big surprise there. But what's interesting is that the Manila Times is reporting that even more Filipino men, 1 out of 3, is a victim of domestic violence, and alcohol is a big problem there too. The difference is that there's no special protection for men like there is for women. We have a law called the Violence Against Women and Children Act, but there's no such remedy for Filipino men. And if you've ever been on the receiving end of an angry, drunken Filipina, you'll know we really need one. But no matter your gender, alcohol and arguments are best buddies, especially in the Philippines. So if you start drinking with a Filipina, you're on your own. But if alcohol causes arguments, what creates harmony? Well, according to a brand new study, it turns out that the couples who gossip together stay together. In the Philippines, gossip is a fine art, and the person who specializes in other people's business is called a marites. She can be found almost anywhere, poking her nose into your activities and reporting what she finds to anyone who'll listen. If you're the subject of a marites, get ready for the whole town to hear rumors about your life. But when couples do it, the research indicates that it actually seems to strengthen the relationship. On average, couples spend 30 minutes a day engaged in gossip, usually about friends, family members, co-workers, and neighbors. Couples who gossip less than that report a lower level of contentment and satisfaction. Who would have guessed that gossiping with your wife would actually keep her happy? Better be careful, or you'll end up doing the dishes together too. But one thing that does not make a woman happy is getting scammed. You've all seen the videos about dishonest Filipinas targeting lonely Western men, but now we're seeing the shoe on the other foot. According to the Philippines Cybercrimes Division, there's been a rise in scammers pretending to be handsome foreigners who end up tricking Filipinas into sending their hard-earned cash. Up to 16 Filipinas a day are falling for foreign love scams, which might sound very familiar to some of you guys who have been targeted by them. The man tells the Filipina he loves her and wants to come see her, but first he needs to pay an unexpected bill. If only he knew someone that could loan him a few $100 until his paycheck arrives. Of course, the money is never seen again. And while it might sound like a ridiculous scam, it's the same one being used on many of you guys, and it actually works. Now, I never thought I'd hear myself saying this, but to my Filipino sisters, do not send money to foreigners you've never met. Wow, that sounds weird. And here's something else that's weird. Remember the Big Bang episode where Sheldon becomes his own robot?
Greetings, friends.
Well, as it turns out, that's actually happening. Filipinos are now being hired for remote manual labor by businesses all over the world. As robots continue to replace expensive human workers, companies are using them for restocking shelves and even helping customers. And by slipping on a virtual reality headset, a Filipino in Cebu can help a customer in Tokyo. Now, most of the robots are fully autonomous, and one human can monitor up to 50 at a time. But every once in a while, the human operator, called a pilot, has to take control and see through the eyes of the robot, like when it drops a can of peas and has trouble picking it up. Every time a Filipino takes over, the robot's AI watches and learns the motor skills necessary to pick up the can the next time. So the operator is actually teaching the robot how to replace him. Not a good strategy for long-term employment, but hey, we'll take what we can get. So now let's switch gears and talk about a true Filipino icon, the jeepney. These unique vehicles have been the primary mode of public transportation since the end of World War II. But now, it might be the end for these colorful old workhorses. Many of them are unique works of art that have been driven by the same families for decades. But they're also gas guzzlers that create a lot of pollution, and the Philippines government wants them off the road. There's a plan to phase out the jeepney and replace it with cleaner alternatives. But how can the average drivers afford brand new vehicles? They can't. And if the government forces the jeepneys to be retired, up to 200,000 drivers will lose their jobs. It'll probably take a few more years for these symbols of Filipino culture to completely disappear. But the outcome is inevitable. In the meantime, there's a new craze on the road, the e-trike. For as little as $600, you can buy an electric vehicle that'll transport a family of 4. And sometimes a lot more than that, if you ride Filipino style. Sounds exactly like what the government wanted, right? No more pollution. But no, It's the Philippines, so of course there's a problem. It turns out that the people aren't getting driver's licenses to operate them, and in many urban areas, e-trikes are now jamming the roads and causing accidents. Trying to get Filipinos to follow rules is like trying to herd cats. It's nearly impossible. So we'll see what happens in the next chapter of the Philippines Road Wars. Now here's a fad that's been around for a long time in the West, but it's finally taken hold in the Philippines: aphrodisiac perfumes. While there's no conclusive evidence to prove they actually work, there's a bunch of new fragrances that use pheromones to seal the deal. Instead of powdered rhinoceros horn or wing of bat, the ingredients in these perfumes were created in the lab and were designed to mimic human pheromones that literally make you irresistible to the opposite sex. There's even a fragrance foreigners can wear that's guaranteed to attract a Filipina. Eau de cash. It smells exactly like paper currency, and once a Filipina gets a whiff of it, you won't be going home alone. Our final story of the day involves a disturbing new trend that's even attracted the attention of the government. You know how couples mark the length of a relationship by remembering a yearly anniversary? Well, not in the Philippines. We can't wait a whole year, so we have a celebration every 30 days called a Monthsary. How sweet, right? So, what's the problem? Well, the problem is, you're supposed to give each other a gift, but who can afford 12 gifts a year? So instead of giving your boyfriend a present, it's becoming a custom for Filipinas to give their boyfriends sex. Now, this might not sound like a big deal, and maybe it even sounds like a fun tradition. But what's happening is that even adolescent couples are doing it, which is resulting in a rise in teen pregnancies. To combat the situation, the government is putting more resources into sex education and increasing the availability of birth control. But it looks like the Monthsary is here to stay. Unlike grown men that always forget their anniversary, I'm sure young Filipinos never forget a Monthsary. Little do they know, but getting sex only once a month is what happens after marriage too. Well, that's it for this week's news, but the world is always making more, and I'll be back to cover it. In the meantime, join me on my Patreon page where you can chat with me in real time about whatever's on your mind. Till then, folks. If you think about it, I'm kind of like the farmer's daughter, ready to make you laugh while helping you grow your plans for the Philippines. I can also tell you how to find a good Filipina so you don't end up with a hoe. If you appreciate all my labor, please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to my channel, and tap the notification bell so you'll know when it's time to harvest the next video. And don't forget to check out my Patreon page for extra content and exclusive videos and features.
Hey, the traveling salesman's here to see you again.
He's such a nice man. He promised to plow my field. I don't think that's where the seeds go.